A small shadow pressed flat into the mud, not a trash bag. It didn't move. A tiny Doberman pup, barely 3 months old, was pinned against the sludge by the rust-stained fence of an abandoned factory. The black and tan coat that should have shown was nothing more than clumped patches, streaked with mud and iron dust, laying bare a body wasted thin. The ribs jutted out, sharp as skeletal fingers breaking through skin pulled too tight. But the belly was different. Bloated, misshapen, hard as if it might burst. As though all the pain in its body had gathered there. Each breath was a battle. The sound wasn't breathing. It was metal scraping in short, broken bursts, like an hourglass down to its last grain. Tiny ears plastered against its head, too weak to lift. Eyelids trembled, yet the eyes stayed open. Clouded, shot through with red, searching for something to hold on to. Some reasons not to let go. People passed. A worker pushed a cart by, glanced once, and looked away. A man in a white shirt with his tie half loosened stopped for 2 seconds, then quickened his pace. A group of young men lingered longer, but not to help. They laughed, pointed, lifted their phones, turning the moment into entertainment. Then a flat voice cut the air behind me. "Just a sick dog. Let it die." The words snapped dry, like a branch breaking, and that's when its eyes met mine. No bark, no whine, no plea. Just one voiceless question, pressed raw and shaking straight into my chest. "Will you leave me too?" I froze. Sweat broke across my forehead, not from the blistering heat of noon, but from something colder. The street, the people, all of it fell away. There was only me, and the fragile life caught between breath and silence. The image sliced through me like a blade. The last days of my wife. The same eyes, the same unspoken question. I had sat helpless at her bedside, hearing each labored breath, watching her stomach swell as her organs failed. The doctor's words had been merciless. It may be time to let her go. And I had nodded, broken, with nothing left to give. Now another body lay before me, smaller, coated in mud like an early shroud. But the eyes, those eyes, were the same. A chance staring me down. I don't remember moving, only the screech of rust as I threw my weight against a sheet of corrugated metal blocking the way. It clanged to the ground, the sound sharp and final. Laughter rippled behind me. "Old man's lost it. Touch it and you'll catch disease." I didn't answer. Mud sucked at my shoes, the stench of rust mingling with rot. I dropped to my knees. My hand touched its body and went still. It weighed almost nothing. Not light like a feather, but empty, as if I were lifting a hollow sack, except for the belly, stone hard, burning hot. A tiny sound broke from it, so faint I had to bend close to hear. But that sound, fragile as it was, crushed me. I slid my arms under, pressed it against my chest. Its soaked fur reeked of damp earth and the acrid sting of sickness. The smell of death. I shivered, and in the echo of my mind, the same voice returned. "Just a sick dog. Don't waste yourself." But then, movement, a twitch of the lids. Those clouded eyes opened a fraction wider. Its breath staggered against my ribs, and in those shallow gasps, I heard it. "Don't leave me." I tightened my hold. The laughter, the jeers behind me dissolved into nothing. The world narrowed to this fragile creature in my arms. I bent low, pulled it free of the mud, through the gap in the fence, into the blinding light of noon. Mud smeared across my coat, sweat stung my eyes. Voices called after me, flat and careless. "Old man, it won't make it." I didn't look back. I lowered my gaze to the trembling frame and whispered, almost like a vow, "As long as you're breathing, I will not let you go." I pulled the Doberman pup tighter against my chest, feeling each fragile heartbeat flutter beneath the soaked fur. It no longer had the strength to shiver, only the searing heat from its bloated belly pressed out, a heat not of life but of fever, burning it hollow from within. Its body was a tiny furnace, flames eating themselves away, each ragged breath flickering like a candle in the wind. Behind me, laughter rang sharp, echoing across the rust-stained yard. What the hell's that old man doing? Touching it's like hugging a disease. Bet he'll be burying it tomorrow. Phones clicked in rapid bursts. I didn't turn, but I knew they'd upload the pictures, make a joke out of this moment. More voices, mocking, excited. "Yeah, record it. Some old man rescuing a sick mutt. Might even go viral." I stepped forward, my mud-caked shoes dragging heavy as lead. But still, I walked. Each step felt like dragging my body out of a swamp of jeers. In my head, the laughter warped into another sound, the steady hiss of a ventilator from the hospital. The rhythm that once carved into me, each hiss reminding me her breaths were running out. I saw her face again, pale, eyes filled with a quiet surrender, yet still looking to me for something, anything, that last trace of trust. And I had been powerless. I had heard the doctor's cruel words. It may be better to let her go, to ease her pain. And I had nodded. That memory still bled inside me. Now, another fragile body lay in my arms. Bloated belly, clouded eyes, breath fractured into shards. But this time, its gaze wasn't just surrender. It was a knife-edged question. What will you do? Will you turn away too? The weight of that question slammed into me. I knew if I walked away, I'd carry this image forever, a scar that would never heal. But if I stayed, if I fought for it, maybe I could save more than just this pup. Maybe I could save the part of me that had been breaking all these years. I pulled it closer, whispering the words that had already slipped from me once. As long as you're breathing, I won't let you go. The Denver noon scorched down, light bouncing off the pavement like a sheet of fire. The dry air stabbed my lungs with 100 needles. Still, I held tight, quickening my steps across the open lot and out to the street. A truck roared past, horn blaring, tearing the air open. I jolted, but didn't loosen my hold. My arms locked around that weightless body, its stone-hard belly pressed against me. A chill ran down my spine, but I didn't falter. In my mind, the mocking voice rose again. "It's just a sick dog. You can't save it." But then, a flicker. Its eyelids quivered, opening a fraction wider. Those clouded eyes dragged themselves toward me. A feeble effort, yet enough to seize my chest. It hadn't given up. It still wanted to live. I yanked open the door of my old pickup, laying it gently on the passenger seat. Its small frame disappeared into the folds of my mud-stained denim jacket. My hands shook as I dug out a water bottle, tipping drops onto its cracked lips. The water rolled down, catching on the faint twitch of its tongue. It couldn't swallow much, but it tried, licking weakly for more. Just that, and my vision blurred with tears. I turned the key. The engine coughed, growled, then roared, shuddering the whole cab. The pickup lunged forward, leaving the laughter behind. Heat pressed down inside the cabin, a furnace of its own. Only 3 sounds filled the air: the groan of the motor, the grind of tires on asphalt, and the broken rasp of a life clinging to the edge. One hand clenched the wheel, the other pressed against its chest. Every rise and fall of that narrow ribcage shot through me like a fist. But when the breath stuttered, when it dipped too shallow, My blood froze cold. I leaned low, voice hoarse, more vow than plea. "Don't give up, Shadow. I'm taking you to the clinic. Just hold on a little longer." The name came out without thought. Shadow. My shadow. Maybe because from the moment its eyes locked onto mine, I had known we were bound. If I didn't let go, neither would it. Outside the glass, Denver's streets stretched under fractured sunlight. I stared ahead, refusing to imagine the worst. Sweat stung my eyes, sliding salt into the corners. But this time, I knew one thing with absolute clarity. I would not turn away. Not ever again. The engine roared as my old pickup shot out of the abandoned industrial yard, dragging the stench of rust and mud behind it. I gripped the wheel hard, my left arm still pressed tight around the tiny body against my chest. Shadow lay limp on the passenger seat, his bony legs curled in, the bloated belly rising sharply beneath my denim jacket. Each breath rasped in broken bursts, a song about to shatter at any moment. I didn't check the clock. I only counted the fragile rise and fall of his chest. 1, 2, then silence. I held my own breath, trembling, until I saw it lift again. Weak, but there. Every breath was another second clawed back from death, and I knew if I was late, those seconds could be the last. The Denver summer burned mercilessly. Heat lifted from the pavement like smoke. I gunned the truck down endless streets, leaving behind the cold stares that had turned away moments earlier. A sharp curve. I yanked the wheel, tires screeching across asphalt. Shadow whimpered softly, his head tilting toward me. Those clouded eyes cracked open, as if clinging to my face just to breathe a little longer. I whispered, my voice shaking. "Hold on, Shadow. Don't leave me, please." A red light flashed ahead. I slammed the brakes and the truck jolted hard. His frail body slid, thumping against the seat. I lunged over, catching him, my chest exploding with panic. Behind me, horns blared, curses hurled through the air. I didn't care. I bent close, searching for the faint lift of his chest. His ears folded against the noise, then dropped flat. And in the chaos, those dim eyes turned to me again. Exhaustion pulled him under, but still, he held on to me, as if my presence alone was the reason to take one more breath. The light turned green. I hit the gas and the truck lunged forward. Denver blurred past, street cafes, painted walls, voices drifting from balconies. All of it belonged to another world. In this cab, only life and death wrestled for a fragile heartbeat. Then, gridlock. A sea of brake lights blazed red ahead. Cars frozen, unmoving. I slammed my palm against the wheel, the hollow crack echoing. Sweat poured down my face. I looked to Shadow. His breaths were thinner now, each rise swelling his belly to the brink, collapsing slower each time. I pressed my hand to his chest, counting. 1, 2, 3. The gaps were growing longer. Panic flooded me. I jerked the blinker, swerving into the emergency lane. Horns wailed, curses followed, but I no longer heard them. Every second lost was stolen from his life. I weaved between cars, my pulse hammering to the same uneven rhythm as his breath. The road into Denver stretched mercilessly. I bit down hard, eyes locked on the faint green sign ahead. Animal Emergency Clinic, 2 miles. The words tore out of me, half a prayer, half a cry. "Please, don't let it be too late. Give him more time." I drove like a madman. Sirens, rules, the world outside. None of it mattered. Only one thought remained. Get Shadow there before the last breath slipped away. When the glass front building rose into view, my chest cracked open with relief. I don't remember parking. Only the door flinging wide, my arms clutching Shadow tight. The denim jacket was soaked through, reeking of mud, sweat, and sickness, a smell I knew would never leave me. The sliding doors parted. Cold air rushed out, sharp against the heat. A nurse looked up from the reception desk, her eyes widening when she saw us. "How long has he been like this?" she asked quickly. My throat locked. I rasped only a few broken words. "Too long." And no one stopped. Her face stiffened for just a breath, then she pointed toward the glowing doorway of the ER. "Go straight in!" I held Shadow tighter and stepped into the sterile white light of the treatment room, and as I laid him down on that gleaming metal table, I knew I had thrown myself into a battle with no way back. White light from the row of fluorescent lamps poured down onto the cold steel table, stabbing at my eyes. I laid Shadow on it and felt that tiny body slip from my hands, flattening like a rag. His thin legs twitched, the swollen belly rising and falling with ragged breaths, each one dragged up from some dark abyss. A door swung open. A woman in a white coat entered, tall, hair pulled back tight, dark eyes sharp and unyielding. The name on her badge, Dr. Elena Ramirez. A name I would never forget, though at that moment it struck me like a verdict. She bent low, gloved fingers tracing along Shadow's belly. When she pressed the distended swelling, I heard the quiet sigh escape her, like someone who already knew the ending. "Severe ascites," she murmured. Then she straightened, meeting my eyes through her glasses. "Possibly liver failure. It could also be a congenital defect. At this age," she paused, weighing the words, "they usually don't survive." My chest locked. I gripped the edge of the table, terrified my knees would give. "Doctor," my voice cracked, spilling out raw, "is there any way to save him?" Her eyes didn't flinch, but they carried the weight of truth. "To be honest, Mr. Hayes, I don't believe he'll make it. The most humane option may be euthanasia." That word fell heavy, deliberate, cruel. Euthanasia. I knew what it meant, a gentle death. But to me, it was a knife twisting in memory. I saw my wife's face again. That final night, her belly swollen, her breath shallow and broken. The doctor then had spoken nearly the same words. "Perhaps it's time to let her go, to spare her the pain." I had sat by her side, holding a hand that grew colder, doing nothing but weeping. I had let her slip away while I drowned in helplessness. The memory tore the wound wide, bleeding into the present. This pup, swollen belly, broken breaths, clouded eyes begging. I bent close, pressing my palm against Shadow's chest. His heartbeat stuttered, erratic, weak, but still there, still fighting. In those foggy eyes, I caught the faintest glimmer, not asking to be released, but pleading to try. Just once more. I shook my head, voice trembling but firm. "No, not yet. He's still breathing. He still wants to live." Dr. Ramirez was silent. Her gaze flickered, then settled on my hand, shielding the pup. She exhaled, gave the smallest nod. "All right. If you want us to try, we'll try. But you must understand. He may not last the night. We'll have to drain the fluid, give oxygen, IV fluids, and possibly undergo multiple surgeries. The risk of death is extremely high." My fist tightened, nails digging into flesh. The words erupted from me, hard as stone. "Do it. Do everything you can." The room shifted instantly. A nurse rolled in a tray of instruments. Another spread sterile sheets, fitted a small oxygen mask over Shadow's muzzle. Metal clinked, wheels rattled, rubber soles squeaked across the floor, the sounds weaving into a tense symphony. I backed against the wall, body drained, collapsing into a plastic chair. My hands trembled, eyes locked through the glass pane. I saw the needle slide into his fragile vein, watched yellow fluid drain away, stream by stream, pulling the pain from his belly. With every drop, my own chest tightened, as if something were being emptied from me too. The monitor began its steady call. Beep, beep, beep. Each note is a fragile thread binding him to this world. I shut my eyes, fingers laced, whispering like a prayer. Shadow, if you make it through, I swear, you'll never be alone again. Time crawled, every second an ordeal. The snip of scissors, the clatter of metal, the clipped orders of the doctor, each sound held me hostage. I hardly dared breathe, terrified my breath alone could shatter the fragile air. Then the door swung open. Dr. Ramirez stepped out, pulling off her gloves. Her face still wore the discipline of medicine, but there was something new in her eyes. The drainage was successful, she said evenly. We removed a large amount of fluid. He's stable. For now. I lifted my head. Those words, stable for now, struck like the thinnest bridge stretched across an abyss. I bowed into my hands, tears breaking loose. Not tears of safety, but of reprieve. He was still here, still breathing. I stepped inside. Shadow was wrapped in a warming blanket, his breath heavy but more even. I laid my hand on his back, felt his small head tilt, resting faintly into my palm. A fragile movement, but a choice. He chose to lean on me. In that cold, sterile room, amid the indifferent hum of machines, I whispered, my voice raw and breaking, "That's right, you're safe now. I won't let you go, Shadow." That first night after the emergency procedure, I never left the hard plastic chair pulled close to the recovery room window. On the metal table, Shadow lay still, wrapped in a heated blanket. An IV line pierced his tiny leg, clear fluid dripping slowly in time with the steady beep, beep, beep of the monitor. Every sound was a fragile thread tethering him to this world. I sat upright until my back ached, but I didn't dare close my eyes. The white fluorescent light fell over his small face, still smudged with traces of mud. His eyes were shut, lashes trembling faintly. I leaned close, my chest clenching each time his breathing stuttered, terrified it would vanish in the next moment. I didn't pray aloud, only whispered inside my mind, "Don't go. Please don't leave me again." Around 2 a.m, Dr. Ramirez came in. She laid a hand lightly on my shoulder, her voice low but softer than before. "He's still very weak, but he made it through the first night. That's a good sign." I nodded, tears slipping down my face. Made it through the first night. Those words felt like a long breath I hadn't been able to release. By morning, sunlight streamed through the window. My whole body throbbed after the sleepless night, but when I heard a faint rustle, my head snapped up. Shadow turned his head, eyelids quivering before they opened. His eyes were still clouded, but not empty anymore. There was something new, a fragile spark of presence. I leaned close, whispering, "Good morning, little one. You made it through a night." A nurse brought in a shallow bowl of porridge for puppies. I carried it to his muzzle. At first, Shadow didn't move. I waited, murmuring encouragement. Then, a lick. Slow, dry, but the first movement toward life. My throat tightened, my hands shaking as I held the spoon. Bit by bit, he licked again. He couldn't swallow much, but each touch of his tongue to the food lit up my whole world. I couldn't remember the last time I smiled, but right then my lips trembled into one, half smile, half tears. I gave him his name in that moment. You are Shadow. From now on, I'll be the shadow beside you, and you'll be the shadow that follows me. In the days that followed, I kept that promise. Each morning, I arrived, sat in that hard chair, and rested my hand gently on the blanket, feeling the faint rhythm of his breath beneath it. When the nurses brought food, it was I who fed him spoon by spoon. At first, he wouldn't eat unless I was near. Only when I smiled and nodded would Shadow open his mouth. He ate slowly, in tiny bits, and after each bite he lifted his gaze, searching mine. I knew what he was asking, if he could trust. And so, trust returned drop by drop. One afternoon, a student volunteer named Ryan stopped by and chuckled. "Mr. Hayes looks like he only trusts you. We try to feed him, but he turns away, but the moment you come close, he eats." I didn't answer. I just stroked along Shadow's thin back. To me, it wasn't just the act of a puppy. It was a choice. He had chosen me, after all those turned-away faces. Dr. Ramirez checked in several times, too. She once stood at the doorway, watching me spoon porridge into Shadow's mouth, then nodded, a small curve touching her lips. "He's tougher than I thought. And so are you, Mr. Hayes." I didn't explain. I only knew that in that sterile, disinfectant-filled room, a new rhythm of life had begun to pulse. A rhythm that wasn't just saving him, it was pulling me back from the emptiness that had swallowed my days since my wife's passing. One evening, as I stood to leave, I bent low and whispered, "I'll be back in the morning, Shadow." He didn't bark, didn't wag his tail. He only blinked slowly, the clouded eyes closing and opening once more, like a small promise. But to me, that blink was everything. He trusted me. He believed I would return. On the drive home, the memory of that first look came back, the eyes that had asked, "Will you abandon me too?" But now the question had changed. Now they asked, "Will you come back tomorrow?" And I had already given my answer. I would come back, every day, until he could stand on his own. That morning I walked into the recovery room as I had every day. My heart carried the fragile hope of seeing Shadow lift his head, ears trembling, eyes searching for me. But the room was strangely still. No clink of a food bowl, no faint scratching of weak claws against the blanket. I hurried forward, and my chest collapsed in a single beat. Shadow was curled tight in the corner of the kennel, his head pressed hard into the bedding. His small body trembled in waves, breath ragged, his belly swollen again. So stretched I thought the skin might tear. I dropped to my knees, whispering, "Shadow, little one, I'm here." No response. His ears didn't twitch. His eyes barely opened, dull and sunken, drowning in pain. I slipped my hand through the bars, touched his back. Heat jolted through my palm. His body was burning, fever, fierce and consuming. At that moment, Ryan, the student volunteer, appeared behind me, his voice tight with worry. "He hasn't eaten this morning, Mr. Hayes. He even threw up water." The words struck like a hammer. My mind snapped back to my wife's final days, how she, too, had refused food, refused water, her stomach swollen, her breathing labored. The vision overlapped with the sight before me, and my chest seized until I couldn't breathe. I spun around, my voice breaking into a shout, "Get the doctor, now!" I yanked my old denim jacket open, pulled the cage door, and lifted Shadow against my chest. His body hung limp, no fight left, only his eyes shifting faintly toward mine. It wasn't a plea anymore, but a question. "Will you fight for me again?" Pain shot through me. I bent low, whispering, my voice shaking but resolute. "You're not alone, Shadow. If you let go, I'll go with you. But if you stay, I'll fight with you. The emergency room doors banged open. I burst through, sweat and tears soaking my coat. A nurse snatched the pup from my arms, her voice urgent. High fever. Get him on the table. IV fluids. Strong antibiotics. Now! I stood frozen, my chest pounding, hands empty. They fitted the oxygen mask over his muzzle, slid another IV into his fragile vein. The monitor screamed uneven beeps, jagged, like a song breaking apart. Dr. Ramirez strode in, eyes sharp as glass, but her tone steady. He's very weak. This is a crisis point in recovery. He may pull through, or he may not. I clutched the table's edge, my body trembling. No, I couldn't hear that word again. I couldn't let euthanasia return to haunt me a second time. I turned toward her, almost begging. Please save him. Do everything. She didn't answer, only gave a quick nod, and stepped in. I stumbled back against the wall, hands covering my face as tears forced their way out. I wasn't just crying for fear of losing a dog. I was crying because I knew if I lost him, I would lose the fragile hope I had only just found. I had lived for years in silence, in the empty shadow of my wife's absence. Only when shadow appeared had I felt light again. If he left, I knew the darkness would devour me whole. Through blurred vision, I heard the heavy breaths, the drip of fluid through the IV. I stepped closer, laid my hand over the blanket covering him. And then I felt it. A faint movement. A tiny paw, all bone and trembling, scratched weakly against the back of my hand. Fragile, quivering, but deliberate. I bent closer. His eyes cracked open, still clouded but steady, fixed on me. In that moment, I understood. He wasn't ready to let go. He was still here, still speaking in the only way he could. Don't let me go. I lowered my head, whispering, my voice raw. I'm here, Shadow. I won't abandon you. Don't stop. In that room filled with the smell of antiseptic and the hum of machines, time seemed to stall. Each drop of fluid that slid down the line was a drop of hope. I knew the road ahead was still dark, but for now, Shadow hadn't surrendered. And as long as he kept fighting, I would not back down. Morning bled into hours that felt like a lifetime. I didn't move from that spot beside Shadow's table. The machines kept up their jagged chorus, sometimes steady, sometimes slipping into stutters that made my breath lock in my throat. Nurses moved around us, voices low, hands swift. But to me, the world had narrowed to one fragile rise and fall beneath a blanket. Dr. Ramirez came back more than once, her face unreadable as she checked the monitors, adjusted the lines. Each time I searched her eyes for answers, and each time she gave only the same careful phrase, "He's still with us." Those words were threadbare, but I clung to them as if they were rope. By evening, the fever began to break. The heat under my palm slowly eased, though his body was drenched in sweat and weakness. His breaths remained shallow, but they carried a different rhythm, not the jagged gasps of collapse, but the fragile cadence of something holding on. When the nurse slid a cool cloth along his head, Shadow stirred faintly, shifting his paw across the blanket until it brushed my hand again. The motion was almost nothing, a twitch against the fabric, but I caught it, held it as if he had spoken aloud. I leaned close, whispering into the dim hum of machines. You're stronger than you know, little one. Just a little longer. I'm not going anywhere. Somewhere in the sterile air, I thought I heard an answer, not in words, but in the way his chest lifted and fell, the faintest steadiness creeping back. That night, I refused the cot they offered. I stayed in the same chair, back aching, legs numb, my fingers resting over the tiny paw that had reached for me. Shadows stretched across the tiled floor, but I wasn't afraid of them anymore. Because this time, I wasn't sitting in silence waiting for life to leave. I was sitting with a life that was fighting to stay. And as the hours passed, one truth settled deeper into me than anything else. No matter how many battles lay ahead, I would fight them all. Shadow had chosen to keep breathing. And because of that, I had chosen to live again.